Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish podcast, Walking with Our Shadow, where we share ancient indigenous teachings of remembrance, all so we can walk and learn how to walk a path of radical self-love. Hello, everyone. This is Marita, one who catches lightning, with the Path of Ish, here on our new podcast called Walking with Our Shadow. Now, what does that mean? Well, we're going to have some time to break that down, but it's not just going to be talking about shadow work, which is that name and that thing that's out there, but it's really about remembering. So many times we hide things in the shadow, or we hide also knowledge. And so this podcast is an opportunity to remember. I will be sharing from not just my remembrance and my journey, but also all of the teachings that I have been given, that I've sat around fires and learned in kitchens, to pass on to you for you to be able to walk really a path of radical self-love. That's really what I teach in any of my Zoom classrooms. It's really about that path through yourself, with your shadow, leaving nothing behind, and the ability for you to really find cohesiveness. We'll get more into that later. But let me tell you just kind of a little bit of the structure of how we will be doing things. We will be doing things very similarly. If you are a student of mine or have seen me on different platforms, I usually do a little plática, and then we do a meditation and a reflection, and we close the circle that way. So today we're going to have a little plática so you can get to know me, and hopefully I will get to know you as well. So usually this is the point where people tell their biographies. But I'd like to talk about my creation story. We all have creation stories as human beings, as individuals, as societies. We pass on these creation stories to one another to tell people and show people and teach people how we walked on this earth. Sometimes those stories involve tripping and falling, and some of them involve victory. If you're a writer, I'm sure you know about the development of a character and character arc. And so my creation story that keeps evolving every day began in a place, in a city of the gods. I was born in that place that was built on a prophecy to build a place to the gods so that they might rest there and worship, and that is Mexico City. The city was amazing, and if you go to Mexico now, you can still go to Xochimilco and see how it was created, very similar to Venice. It was a very complex system of aqueducts. It was one of the most sustainable city, and there's much we can learn from the way that Mexico was built in the beginning that would apply to us today. And right there, in that moment, we remember. We remember beyond maybe a lifetime in this vessel, in this body, to tell a creation story. The Mayans say that we are born amnesiacs, and so our lifetime is spent remembering. We have to remember, and most importantly, as I tell my students, we have to remember to forget. Forget conditioning. Forget assumptions. Forget the words that you know and the definitions that you know, and start exploring from multiple lenses. So as we reflect, as we remember, as we redefine, we can create ourselves by just the telling of our stories. Now, as you can see, I don't speak in a timeline, in a linear fashion. That's not part of my culture. My culture, even the calendar of my culture, the calendar that I was taught, was circular. My grandfather taught me the Mayan calendar, the Aztec calendar, not just from a historical viewpoint or standpoint, but from a rhythm of being and living, not of a calendar and a culture that had been defeated, but a culture that existed through time. And many of my other platforms, I make it a point to speak of the Mayan calendar extensively. And the reason that I do that is because I want to invite you to have a new relationship to time. Why is that so important? I have people coming and asking for help and guidance, and they come from a predominantly Western viewpoint of solving the problem. Well, you cannot create a new reality from the old with old tools. And so by presenting something that Western society always says there is not enough of, time, by presenting a different relationship to time, one that might weave and act in a circular manner, then that gives us the possibility of a different lens of how to be, of how to create, of how to weave our creation story. I've had many teachers throughout my life. I was always a curious being. And sometimes when teachers find curious beings, they gladly teach them. I'm sure you've seen it around you happening. There are people who are curious and people who are not. And so the teaching happens out in the open. But only one or two of those beings get the teaching because it is their curiosity and their search, not just for information, but for knowledge that allows them access to these teachings that have been passed down from generation to generation to generation. I spoke about my grandfather. Doña Mari was another teacher of mine in the kitchen. And most of my family didn't know that she was teaching me because she was in the kitchen. They were not. And she was in the gardens collecting herbs and stewing pots and telling stories. Another teacher of mine was my grandmother. And she taught me till she passed away when I was about 10 years old. And she was really the one who passed on the knowledge of cacao. And she would sit me there. It was not usually the house where we stayed at when we were in Mexico, when we'd go back to visit, since we spent half the time there and half the time in the United States. So my time with her was just me and her many of the times. I'm the oldest of all the grandchildren. And so I had access to knowledge that grandparents were still alive and teachers were still alive and still younger, so they still remembered a little bit more and had the excitement of passing on that knowledge to a new generation. My tia Tita, someone who also passed away in her about 40s, taught me about baños. So my upbringing was multiple lenses of being. I had curanderismo and Catholicism in Mexico. I also had indigenous teachings and practices from my people passed down, and from others as well, through small conversations here and there. And in the United States, my best friends were Greek. They were from the Sudan, from Guatemala, from Caracas, from all over the world. I grew up with the brain drain of many of the countries that happened and came to the United States in the 80s. I loved it. The food was amazing. We would get together, all of us, in the courtyard of this student house living situation in Lansing, Michigan. And we would have baklava, and we would have Ethiopian food, and we would have Ecuadorian food, and Mexican food, and even more Greek food other than baklava, and Sudanese dishes. My childhood was full of tastes and flavors and sitting around food in kitchens and around circular tables and sharing not just dishes, but stories. Stories of creation, of how people came, what they believed, who their gods were, who they prayed to. They talked about ways of being and of balance and of nature. And my curiosity continued beyond my early years, and I've had many teachers. I've been able to sit in a Lakota circle. I did that for about 8 years on and off. And it was made even more rich, for the elder was Karuk. And I sat and I learned, and I went to ceremony and to sweat lodge, and I listened and I learned, and was able to study with some of the members there, some of their medicine people. And I give gratitude and thanks to that time. I've been able to sit with Hopi elders, sat and listened and learned. I've been able to sit with Navajo and Blackfeet. I've had the honor of sitting with Maya, with Zapotec, with sitting with elders from New Zealand, voodoo elders from Africa, elders from all around the world who have been generous with their creation story. Much of this time has not just been studying out of a whim or out of just curiosity, but of a deep path and calling that I had and was called to even before I was born. I was chosen and dedicated to a path of learning like this. Some would call this a medicine path before I was born. It was in a negotiation that was made. I apparently didn't have a say in it at that time, with my parents and some oracles and medicine people that they knew. Now, my time of curiosity meant I also learned from the world, in the Western world, and it hasn't just been easy. I haven't just been sitting around in circles, passing on the pipe and sitting with elders. I was able also to go to the University of Michigan. I was a rower until I broke my ribs. I studied and did 2 degrees in 5 years. I come from curious people who like to learn. And then at this time, I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and finally left my home, which I had been living with my parents. It's kind of a thing that you do if you're what this country would call an immigrant. And I moved out to California after I had been spending some time in Africa doing videos and trying to start a nonprofit there to help do art with children in Uganda as part of their rehabilitation opportunities so they could tell their creation story. I've had those moments, long nights, early rises as I worked in the hospitality business for 20 plus years. I did what probably everyone has done in that business, including a lot of gin. I've had highs, I've had lows. My life hasn't been easy, but we're not here to have an easy life. I came out when I was in California. And it wasn't an easy thing for my family, and they probably didn't really wrap their heads around it till my father passed. And San Francisco, in the early stages of my time out there, was my party time. It was my addiction time. It was the bottom of the barrel time, rock bottom at moments. And I got myself into situations with peoples and with things and with substances that took me farther away from my path. And I became suicidal, so depressed that the only way that I could see out was to jump off that Golden Gate Bridge or to do something to that extreme. I was a cutter. I was a bulimic. I was many things. And that bulimia was predominantly in high school and followed me a little bit after that. I didn't feel like I fit in. There's this song in Spanish, No soy de aquí, ni soy de allá. I'm not from here and I'm not from there. I didn't fit in. In Mexico, I was too American. In the United States, I was too quote unquote Mexican, or not even that. I didn't speak like people from Mexico. I didn't move like them according to this dominant culture who expects us all to be very brown and very short. I was educated. I was smart. So how could I be a Mexican? And then when I told them I was native, their minds blew. Creation stories don't have linear timelines because we don't actually exist linearly. How many times are you in a present moment and you're thinking forward or you're thinking backwards? Maybe you're just thinking around and around the circle, trying to be whatever that moment is. I reached a point where I decided that I did not want to be erased. So I went back to the Karuk elder in California and sat my butt down in that circle more seriously. It was my saving grace to find community that spoke and acted with circleness and told stories and sang songs around the fire, something that I had missed so much. And so, as many of you say, we fast forward to now, and here we are. As we go round and round the circle of this creation story. And I have the opportunity, and I hope that you will join me on this adventure as I tell stories, as I share what those stories mean, and also try to the best of my ability to create a bridge between the old and the new. I've learned much over the past 3-4 years how to do that, how to bring forth teachings and ways to a Western society that's not watering them down. It just means we have to take a lot more steps because colonization has erased the memory and the right to be of many human beings. And so that's why we must take the time to learn how to remember. So as we go around and around telling this creation story and having this opportunity to share where I come from, share my lessons so I can pass them to you, I want to take a moment to remember and give gratitude and thanks to Samuel Gaskin, who that intro music was created as part of this beautiful, beautiful piece called Reckoning in New Zealand. And it is an honor, such a blessed honor to have that energia of the Maori opening this. And again, as you can see, we are weaving a tapestry of knowledge. And I want to tell you what that opening calls us to. And it translates, according to Sam, as welcome everyone who have joined us on this journey to being one family. Come all welcome. And so as we invite each other on this journey, I want to take this time to go into our meditation for today. Today's meditation is, what is your creation story? So I will lead us into this. In the way that we will be doing meditations, please find a place where you can do this. Hopefully you are not driving in the car. But if you are, please be safe. Is to take 3 breaths. And we will go into their 3 breaths much more extensively in another episode. But these 3 breaths are to really invite our different parts. We're going to invite our mind with the first breath, our body with the second breath, and our essence with the third breath. And don't worry, I will describe what essence is in another episode. So thank you for staying curious as we learn how to walk together. And once we take those focus-centering breaths in and out through the nose, we'll just have a moment to connect. You're going to connect to yourself. You're going to connect to whatever is going on. And you're going to ask of your mind, your body, and your essence, what is my creation story? So let us begin. So just find a place where you can sit naturally or rest naturally. And just take this moment to be. There's no right, no wrong way of being. There's no one way that is better than others. So listen to your own intelligence of how to be in this moment. And as you settle into just a natural breath, just check in. Have you even been breathing through this episode? How much ease can you find with breath? And just settle in whatever way you have been shown or taught to breathe. That brings awareness to you and your surroundings as well. And now that you're settled in, we're going to take our 3 intentional breaths. We're going to take them in and out of the nose, and that allows us to calm down our vagus nerve. And we will begin now. First, in and out through the nose. We call our mind into this time and this place. Second breath, in and out. We call our body into this time, into this place. Third, in and out through the nose. We call our essence into this time, into this place. With all 3 parts combined, just be an observer first. If this is the first time you've ever taken 3 intentional breaths like this, notice how your parts arrive or do not arrive. And do not judge it and just let it be. These 3 breaths are a technique that I teach to all my students and use in all my meditations, privately as well as publicly. And as you settle in to you at this moment and whatever is going on, let us ask ourselves the question, what is my creation story? And let us first ask the mind, what is your creation story? And just allow the mind to speak in the way that it speaks. Now we will ask the body, what is your creation story? Now, if you've never spoken to your body like this, it might take it time to vocalize, to trust you. And remember that the mind and the body speak very differently. They have different languages. I'm sure part of you are thinking of the body and the aches and the pains, but it's not just that. The body holds all of our memories. Now lastly, in and out through the nose. And so we will finally ask our essence, what is its creation story? And as you allow this information to come in, and if you've never spoken to your essence before, or don't really know that word, just allow the word to be the word. That intelligence that you have at the essence level. Once it gets to know you, will communicate with a little bit more ease, or you will get used to it. And now that we've asked of our 3 intelligences, what is our creation story? Let us ask our mother, our creator, the one who we are born in the image and the likeness of. What is my creation story? And yes, that is Mother Earth. And so we turn to the elements, and we turn to the directions and ask the east, ask water, what is my creation story? Where are the waters inside of me? And then we go to the south. And with gratitude and thanksgiving, we ask the south, what is my creation story? We ask the element of fire in the south, what is my creation story? We have fire inside of us. What is it here to tell us about who we are, how we function and operate? And then let us head up to the west. With gratitude and thanksgiving, we ask the west, what is our creation story? And so we call upon the wind of the west. What is our creation story? And yes, we have wind. And I'm not just talking about the one that you're snickering about. We have breath and movement, and sometimes a little too much wind in the mind. And now that you've given the west and the wind an opportunity to speak, we head up to the north, and with gratitude and thanksgiving, we turn to the north and say, what is my creation story? We ask the earth, what is my creation story? If this is a new practice for you, just acknowledge that it is new. If you are someone who are remembering these ways, welcome back. And remember, this is a practice. It's not about being perfect. It's about how much can we discover who we are? How much can we remember about all of those parts of ourselves that we've hidden or tucked away? And now we move on back to the east with gratitude and thanks to all the directions and to all of these elements now for supporting us in this small meditation. As you return, and make sure to check in with your breath, make sure you are still breathing easily. And we'll take one more moment here as you collect all of this information, and know that you can always go back and re-listen to this part of the podcast as many times as you want, for this to become a daily practice, something new, a new tool to give you a new perspective and possibility of how to create yourself. And with that, we give gratitude and thanks to all the guides, to all the elements, to all the directions, to all the teachers, and to all of those who have passed on these ways through generation and generation, so that we might learn how to create and recreate ourselves as we build relationship with all of our parts, all of the kingdoms, all of the elements, all of the directions. And so with gratitude and thanks, let us take our 3 intentional breaths in and out through the nose and give gratitude and thanks for our essence, for coming to this time and to this place. In and out through the nose, as we give gratitude and thanks to our body for being here in this time, in this place, in this small meditation. And in and out through the nose, thanking that beautiful mind of yours, that questioning mind that's a little befuddled and bedazzled at the same time right now. And thank it for showing up in this time, in this place, with curiosity and with courage and with play. And with that, rub your hands together if you have the capability of doing that. Oh, nice little biofeedback, letting you know that you're back here. And put your hands over your heart and just seal this knowledge in. I want to thank all of you for taking this time to sit and be here on this journey as we create this creation story of walking with our shadow. Again, I am Marita, one who catches lightning with the path of Ish. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to you and everyone who has joined us on this journey to being one family. I hope to see you in the next episodes and several down the road as we go more and tell more stories, as we talk about small steps to larger bridges that we can have and discussions that we can have and ways of being that we can talk about so we can move on in a better way and keep walking in a good way. Also down the line, I will be interviewing some amazing people, including Sam Gaskin. Thank you so much. So he can talk about reckoning and the ancestors and whatever comes up when Sam and I have a nice chat together. And so thank you again. I want to make sure that you know that all the teachings that I am expressing or stating or giving or sharing, I have been given not just the go-ahead, but a little bit of the kick in the butt to make sure that these teachings are getting out there. So I want to thank all of my teachers, including those who taught me right out of the womb and who have been teaching and training me in multiple traditions and on a very, very deep spiritual path. With gratitude and thanks to all my ancestors, all my teachers, this is Marita, one who catches lightning with the path of Ish. Once again, it is with deepest gratitude that I bow to you for joining me on this podcast, this episode, this circle, this plática, this meditation, this remembering. I hope that you have stayed curious. I hope to see you in the circle again next week. So make sure that you like or follow. Until then, may you be blessed with abundance of peace and radical self-love.